This case has puzzled investigators from the very beginning. So much so that even Brandon's own brother believes there are things that we may never know about what happened to him. But why? What is it about this case that's left investigators scratching their heads? In today's video, we will look at the puzzling case of Brandon Lawson, who mysteriously vanished without a trace back in January of 2023. Before we get into the details of this heartbreaking case, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And please remember to show your support. On January, just after 8 p.m., Brandon Lawson called 911 and told the operator that he needed urgent assistance because someone was chasing him and trying to kill him. He said he had been followed for several hours and he believed they wanted to hurt him. In a panic, Brandon explained that he had been separated from his wife and 2 young children and was now alone. Brandon sounded terrified when he spoke to the operator. He could be heard saying, "I'm sorry, ma'am. They're chasing me right now. They're gonna kill me." The operator tried her best to calm Brandon down and asked him where he was so she could send help. But Brandon kept changing locations, which made it hard for the operator to figure out where exactly he was. He told her he was near a convenience store, and then said he was at an intersection before finally telling her he was at a motel on North Access Road. At some point during the call, Brandon mentioned seeing a police car. This led the operator to believe that maybe law enforcement was already aware of the situation and were probably close by. But when officers arrived at the locations Brandon gave them, they couldn't find him. The last thing Brandon said to the operator was, "I see a police car. I don't know what to do," before the line went dead. This was around 8:15 p.m., and no one had seen or heard from Brandon since. The thing is, in the days leading up to this call, Brandon had not shown any signs that he was being pursued or that he was in any kind of danger. On the contrary, his friends and family said he seemed to be in good spirits. So why did Brandon call 911 that night? What was he so afraid of? Unfortunately, we may never know the answer to these questions. Brandon's loved ones have been left in the dark ever since he vanished. What makes this case especially perplexing is that there are gaps in the timeline of events leading up to Brandon's disappearance. Brandon left his home in the 4700 block of South Post Oak Road in Missouri City, Texas, around 6 p.m. on the day he disappeared. However, no one knows exactly where he went or what he did during those 2 hours before making the 911 call. All they know is that he was nowhere to be found when his family tried to contact him around 8:30 p.m., half an hour after he called 911. His sister told Fox 26 News, "We tried calling him. His phone went straight to voicemail. It was weird. He never does that. He always answers the phone or at least sends a text message." According to his family, Brandon never would have left the kids, and he definitely wouldn't have abandoned his wife. His sister continued, "We all agree that he didn't leave on his own accord. That wasn't like him at all. He would never leave his kids and not tell somebody where he was going, especially not for over 24 hours. She added that Brandon's wife, Sydney Lawson, who is 9 months pregnant, is devastated. She doesn't understand it. She is lost. I think she calls him about every 15 minutes. She's holding on to hope that he'll come home." But where did Brandon go after leaving his home? This is another question that has stumped investigators. When Brandon made the 911 call, he told the operator he was at a motel on North Access Road. However, when the police arrived at the motel, they found no sign of Brandon or anyone who matched his description. And if he had been there, surely someone would have seen him because there were plenty of people coming and going from the motel. There were also surveillance cameras mounted outside the rooms, but none of them captured Brandon. Brandon's truck was later found abandoned on a rural road in Anderson County, Texas, more than 100 miles away from the motel. Inside the truck, officers found Brandon's wallet, his keys, and his cell phone, but there was no sign of a struggle and nothing to suggest how he got there. To make matters worse, Brandon's truck had no gas and his cell phone had a full battery, meaning he either stole the truck or he left it there days ago. It's also strange that he left his personal belongings behind. He was only 23 years old and had his whole life ahead of him. Why would he suddenly abandon everything? So here are the facts. Brandon called 911 saying someone was trying to kill him. Then, he disappeared. No one has seen or heard from him since. There's no evidence of foul play, But there's also no evidence that he's alive. The police say they are still looking for him, but they haven't released anything substantial about their investigation. This case is baffling because there are too many unanswered questions. If Brandon was hallucinating and seeing things that weren't there, why did he call 911 and beg for help? If he was trying to hide from someone, why did he call attention to himself by making a 911 call? And why did he leave his truck behind? These are just a few of the questions that investigators are struggling to answer. One theory is that Brandon may have gotten into some kind of trouble that he didn't want his family to know about. However, his family insists that he was a good guy who didn't deserve what happened to him. Another theory is that Brandon may have been kidnapped. But if this were the case, why didn't his abductors just take his phone and wallet with them? It seems unlikely that Brandon would have willingly given them his phone. It seems like the police are pursuing both possibilities, but neither theory has panned out. What makes this case even more frustrating is that law enforcement may have actually had an opportunity to find Brandon, but they missed it. When Brandon called 911, the operator asked him several questions, including what he looked like and what he was wearing. She also asked for a description of the person who was chasing him. However, according to Brandon's brother, when the police arrived at the motel, they failed to ask the staff if they had seen Brandon or someone matching his description. Instead, they just started knocking on doors, which is strange because it would have been easy enough for the staff to tell the police whether or not they saw Brandon. This suggests that the police may have been confused by the information they received from the operator. Perhaps they thought that Brandon was the person who was chasing Brandon, which is why they didn't ask the staff at the motel. Another odd thing is that the police didn't release a description of Brandon to the media until 3 days after he disappeared. By that time, he could have been anywhere. His brother told Fox 26 News that this delay prevented people from coming forward with information. He said, "It was too late. People could have helped, but by the time it was in the media, people had already forgotten what he looked like and what car he was driving." But this is not the only puzzling aspect of this case. In fact, there is another part of the story that is just as strange. After Brandon vanished, his family took it upon themselves to conduct their own search. They drove around the area looking for him, but they were unable to find any trace of him. However, they did something that ended up paying off. Brandon's sister posted a message on Facebook asking for help finding her brother, and one of her friends saw the post and shared it with her friends. One of those friends worked at a local car dealership and showed the post to her boss. The boss recognized Brandon from a previous visit and remembered that Brandon had recently inquired about buying a pickup truck. The dealership didn't have what Brandon was looking for, so they checked other lots in the area and found Brandon's truck at a different dealership. The family immediately contacted the police and they went to retrieve the truck. This is how they discovered that it was Brandon's truck. So here's what we know. Brandon called 911 saying someone was trying to kill him, but no one knows why. He was never seen again. There are no witnesses and there's no evidence that he's alive. His truck was found abandoned 100 miles away, but there's no evidence of foul play. Brandon's family believes he would never have left them voluntarily, but they don't know what he was doing in a truck 100 miles away. The police have not released any new information about the case, and no one knows where Brandon is. So what do you think happened to Brandon Lawson? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Please remember to share and like this video.